It's SHOT Show 2025. I was having breakfast with a friend, and he said, "Hey Graham, you have got to go downstairs and check out Mountain Billy Gun Lab and their Goat-15." Fast forward a few months later, and yep, it's a Goat-15 is here on the channel for tabletop review and field strip. Coming up next on Here we have a Stag 15 tactical representing just your standard AR. I've got a few of them, I'm sure you all do, but have you ever wondered in looking at something a little less expensive, a little quieter, cheaper to shoot, maybe easier for new shooters or for teaching, or for something to take with you backpacking or on a camping trip that isn't exactly a giant AR-15? What would happen if we scaled things back about 20% smaller? And that's where the Goat-15 comes in. You can see the receiver, try to line up the web back here for the grip, how much shorter the receivers are both in length and height, how much smaller everything is, and that's because this little guy is meant for 22. And everything about it is smaller. It's got an interesting safety design to it and a nice monolithic upper. Pretty cool setup. Let's take a look. Now in the box that of course does not fit on my bench here for filming, you get two magazines, a 1-round magazine. That's right for single shot applications. Let's say you've got a really soft load that you know doesn't cycle. Which load is that? We'll have to find out when we get to what's for dinner. But say you're shooting like suppressed, really soft load, or you're teaching a newbie and you want them to go through all the practice of using the magazine and loading the magazine, but you don't necessarily want to give them a full mag. That's what this 1-rounder is for. And then they also make these 10-rounders, which have your traditional little helpers on the side, and they are nice and clearly labeled right there. You also get, of course, the federally mandated lock and the manual. And longtime viewers know that on this channel we go through the manual for a couple reasons. One, it shows us how much the company cares, how much they want us to understand the product. And two, it shows the YouTube overlords that what I'm about to do is not gunsmithing, it's not removing parts or anything like that, it's basic user level maintenance. So for that first bit, the second bit, the robots of YouTube can do what they're going to do. Nice, clear, large font. It's color printed on decent paper. I did not see any ammunition restrictions in it. It had beyond what is required in a user manual. Nice things about, for example, if you get hang fire, how to properly handle that kind of stuff. Like it's set up for newer shooters to understand and get comfortable with their firearm. Good, clear images with graphic overlays to highlight things that need to be highlighted. Very nicely laid out. I was pretty impressed with the manual. Enough of that, let's get back to the gun. Let me zoom in here since things are a little bit smaller. But as I described, what we have here is a 20% reduced sized AR looking thing. Of course it's direct blowback because it's 22 LR, but the receivers are shorter and smaller, made of polymer, which is fine because 22 doesn't need that much oomph behind it, as long as you've got good lockup between the bolt and the barrel extension. And by lockup I mean mass of the bolt, since 22s are mostly blowback operated. What this does is shrinks everything down to make it a little bit easier to pack, easier to wield. How much easier? Well, how about under 3 pounds for the complete rifle? This is incredibly lightweight. They also have an SBR version available, which I'm sure weighs even less because it has less polymer and, most importantly, less barrel. As we look at that polymer, we see that we've got a monolithic design here for the handguard. I thought I was flexing it earlier, and what I was really flexing was there's a little bit of play in the stock here. Now the stock, of course, is also scaled down because the buffer tube is scaled down. Everything is smaller and unique. You notice there's no end plate there because this is not threaded in. It's all part of the lower receiver. Now, unfortunately, that does mean that you can't swap out the pistol grip, but I don't think you'll need to. We'll find out. When I was first handling this at the gun shop, and I went to drop the mag, my finger overshot the mag release because it's got to be back here since everything's smaller. We have a 16-inch barrel. It is threaded 1/2 by 28 to be suppressor and muzzle device friendly. And you can see we've got M-LOK slots at the 3, 6, and 9, and pick rail at the 12, which means you should be able to mount just about anything you want to on this thing. Now let's field strip. Oh, almost forgot that big, funky looking knob. Pretty smart device. You see this wheel, might be wondering what it's for, especially since we have standard safety controls on the other side. What this wheel does is it's tamper resistant, and I can see this as being A really smart idea for a pack gun. Also, if depending on the range protocols where you're shooting or who you're handing it to. If you're teaching a newer shooter and you want to go over some things without worrying about them flipping the switch and hitting the trigger, this pulls up and rotates and then locks back down. And when that's down, the safety is effectively locked in place. I can wiggle a little bit, but I can't disengage it. It also serves, if I unlock, as a safety switch itself. So you can see I can rotate this knob and that makes it ambi friendly. Does it stick out? Yes, it's broader than your standard safety, but it's also something you can kind of roll your finger on instead of having to reach over, depending on how you want to shoot. So I thought that was a very interesting device. I think probably the best application for it would be a gun that you want to be able to pack away and not have to worry about something bumping the switch, because the safety switch does get bumped. I can tell you this as a guy who carried a rifle on patrols in Afghanistan and Iraq. It can get bumped. It's something to be aware of. Well, the rest of the parts are also unique to this thing, including how it's constructed. I'm going to get a screwdriver and a hex bit to be able to field strip, because that too is also a little different. As I mentioned before, to do this you'll need a flat head on one end and a hex key on the other. The sizes are in the manual, don't worry. And I will pause here for all the whining. Okay, yeah, I agree. It's not the most convenient thing. It's not as quick and easy as your standard push pins, but it does allow all of this to be made simpler. We can see inside that even our trigger group is a little bit different and unique. You can tell if you're an AR aficionado that these pins are closer together. Magazine release is different. Everything is scaled down, making this quite handy, small, and lightweight. Of a receiver, we can now pull our bolt right out the back. And you can see we've got a little guide pin that works inside of the charging handle gap. And then all of this is our reciprocating mass. So this is the part that would need lubrication and cleaning, as well as getting under that extractor there. I like this setup because this bolt has a bit more mass than I'm used to seeing on 22 conversions, which could be a good thing. Cotter pin sticks out a little bit. At first I thought there was some type of odd burr on the side of the bolt, but it's not. And then we've got a piece of polymer, hard plastic, in the back to serve as our bump stop. But you can see that sliding on two rails on either side, this bolt is not going to get out of alignment very easily. So as long as our magazines are good, we should have great reliability. Now I'll put this back together, and on the topic of reliability, semi-auto 22s, I know a lot of them these days have been fixed, but I'm of the generation that's used to 22 LRs not being the most reliable, predictable thing in the world. By the way, to field strip this, you can just take one out and then shotgun it, bend it open. I did both to make it easier. So when we get to the range, of course, this will be fed the What's for Dinner test. I have quite a range of stuff, maybe some things that'll choke this, and probably some stuff that'll run well. We'll probably also do an accuracy portion a little bit different than our standard review format, simply because I'm curious, and I'm thinking 50 yards is good enough. I don't know if I'm going to put like a red dot on this, or I'm curious to hear what you guys want to see on this, or what you would mount on this. I'm thinking just a simple red dot for plinking fun, and what a great handy lightweight gun to have around for packing and camping or training. In fact, I've got a new to guns friend of mine that I might use this to introduce the world of shooting to. So be on the lookout for that full-length review video. As always, check the pinned comment. That's where sources are, where you can find out pricing and where to get all of these and that kind of stuff. No YouTube, I don't sell anything, but I do help people find the right equipment for their needs. Thank you for watching. Thank you for 10 years of support, and we'll see you in the next video.
GBGuns, and I do to level. Derek Gass, Junior Joseph T, Al GP to Ray, Tom Sky King, Brian P. Rich, Moises S. Fast Eddie, Tallow 215. Donald H, Jenna I, Greg K. Thanks for the tip level. BRB2, Christopher J, David P, Andrew B, Court Lee H, JS Farhan N, Gryfos Michael W, David G, Robert B, Ohio Cruffler, Briscoe County John, Brian K, Red Sky, Waha, Edward Z, Alan B, Fear 76, Tattoo Johnny, Uncle Munzie, Miss Doodle Punk, Mount Stewart E, Justin H, Summer G. Keeping things on its level. Gary B, Brad M, George H, Daniel D, Othniel M, Gold, Adrian H, Mark S, Edit P, Gary C, J.E. Logan G, RBMB 2022 A, Gil B, Ronzi Mike, NC Technocon, Half Empty, Ronald W, Russ P, GPC 1986, Robert C, Michael L.